All right, everybody, Robert Jerdee here. Hope you're having a great day, and welcome to the Saturday morning cartoons edition of All Things Nerdy. I'm your host, Robert Jerdee, and let's talk about Mummies Alive. This show, now I was familiar with it going into it, but I'd never seen an episode. Now, this is a show from 1997, ran for one season. It's interesting, so let's get into it. The beginning of the show, we see it's ancient Egypt. No, not ancient Egypt, sorry. I'm guessing it's like in the 20s or 30s. That's how it kind of looks. And we see this dude, and he's an explorer, and he's breaking the seal into this pyramid. He's trying to get into this locked, sacred, cursed pyramid. And all the people helping the native people are like, "Sir, that's cursed. You can't get in there." And he's like, "Shut up, you fools." He's kind of an arrogant guy, this explorer, grave robber. And so he goes into they unsealed the pyramid, he goes in, and everybody abandons him. They're like, "Screw this, we're out." And so as he's wandering around, he's like, "These aren't hieroglyphs. These are markings. Like someone's counting down the days." And then all of a sudden you hear this like, "Wah!" And he turns around and it's this evil wizard monster, and he laughs and he says something. It's hard to tell what he says, but he's like, "The game is afoot," or "The game is afoot." But he says something and to imply that terrible things are about to happen, and then it cuts. And then we get the opening of the show, and it's modern day San Francisco, well, 1997 modern day San Francisco, when we meet our hero. It's a kid named Presley. And I didn't like this kid. So this is 97, so I imagine we're swimming in the world of extreme, quote unquote. And he's a skateboarder and he's a thrill seeker. And there's a scene where he's with his nerdy friend, and they're going down one of, a famous, steep hill in San Francisco on his skateboard. And he's like, "See you later, sucker." And he goes down the skateboard. And as he's being extreme, he knocks down this lady. She's carrying 2 bags of groceries, and he knocks her down, and the groceries fly everywhere. And I'm like, this is our hero? This jerk? Help the lady! You knocked over groceries, man. Anyway, so this is Presley, our hero. And he goes to the museum. He goes to the museum where his mother works. His mother is she's kind of like in charge of, she's not in charge of the museum, because we meet the museum boss. But she's like she's like the Riker. She's like the second in command. And she's sort of holding down the fort, managing a new Egyptian museum, a new Egyptian exhibit that's there at the museum called the Rapses, Rapses exhibit. And it's a former prince, Rapses, Rapses. And so, we kind of get a little bit of their relationship. He takes some money out of her purse, and she kind of like, fine, whatever. Because she's always busy, she's talking on the phone, so that kind of sets that up a little bit. She's not a single mom, but she is kind of a single mom because the dad is somewhere we don't know where. Right, okay. So anyway, so the kid is in the museum where his mom works, and he goes and he's wandering around and he hears a voice, and it's like, "Join me, son," or something like that. I don't know if you could hear that on the microphone, but it's like he hears whispers beckoning him to the Rapses museum exhibit. And so he walks over there, and he's getting freaked out, right? He thinks one of his friends is like messing with him. And he looks around, and he sees all these mummies and everything everywhere, right? And he's kind of creeping out. And there's a very weird sequence where he sees all these sarcophagi, and then he trips. And he falls over a little sarcophagi of a cat, a mummified cat. And he grabs it, and he's like, "Oh, this poor kitty." And he starts crying. And he's like, why am I crying? I don't know who this cat is. And he gets rid of the sarcophagus, and he starts walking off. Well, meanwhile, there's like all these guards, all these they look like mannequins, Egyptian mannequin guards. And they're starting to come to life and watch him as he's exploring the museum and exploring this exhibit. And they actually come to life, and they start to chase him, and they start grabbing him and trying to get him. And he's freaking out, and it turns out this whole exhibit, because he runs to a security guard, he's like, "Security guard, help me, these guys are trying to get me." And security guard turns around like Michael Jackson style Thriller, but it's him, but it's one of these mummies in the golden face. And he's like, "Ah, And so he's freaking out. So all these mummies are after him. And then we meet the main villain named Scarab. And he is a very Mum-Ra sort of villain, Monstar sort of villain. Old, decrepit, wizardy kind of character. And he's like, Prince Rapses, I see. I've been waiting for you for years. And he kind of fills him in on a little bit about his father locking him into a sarcophagus and some weird stuff, right? They throw a lot of info at you in this first episode, a ton. In fact, I had to watch this first episode 4 or 5 times, all seriousness, because it is really, we'll get into it more, but they throw a lot at you. So he's freaking out, this kid, Carson, and he's like, help! And then all of a sudden, the sarcophagi explode, and out come his 4 protectors. And we get the heroes of the story, the Mummies Alive. And now, I kind of joked about tiger sharks a couple of Saturday morning cartoons ago, how there is no fanfare in the transformation, like they get in the tank and then they're fish and they swim away. But this one is the exact opposite. It's like the transformations are way too long. Well, I shouldn't say way too long, but there's a lot of transformations going on. So there's 4 heroes, right? And this is kind of fun because we talk about group dynamics, right? And how every group has certain members or roles they fill. I think of that Great Sunny episode where they're talking like, I'm the mastermind, I'm the brains, you're the muscle. So that's kind of very similar to Mummies Alive. So you've got the blue, he's got Ninja Turtle style as well. The hero is in blue, and his name is Jackal, like Jackal, but Jackal. And he's a falcon. I think it's like a falcon, because he has wings. And, he has a big transformation, and then there's another guy, Wrath? I think his name is Wrath, but it's not spelled, it's like R-A-T-H or something. And he turns into a snake, or he's green, and his animal is like a snake. And there's a guy called Armand. I think of Armand, but it's Armand, and he's the muscle. He's the bruiser of the group. And it's kind of cool because he turns into like a ram or an ox. I think it's a ram. And he's missing an arm. And in the transformation, so before they go superhero, they're just mummies, right? In bandages and stuff. And Armin is missing an arm. Arm? Anyway, so he's missing an arm. So when he goes through the transformation, like he gets like this really cool like stone ox arm. It's pretty cool. And then the last member is, and this is kind of weird, so it's Nefertine at first, or Nefert, something like that. And then as this battle happens and things like that, we realize that Nefertin is actually Nefertina. And because back in ancient Egypt, the women weren't able to ride chariots, and she's the speed freak. She's like the pilot speed freak of the group. She went Mulan, pretended to be a dude, Joan of Arc, to fight in battle and to be so the kid is like, you're a chick. And she's like, yeah. And the guys are like, what? You're a girl? We never knew. You guys never knew? I mean, she's wearing a bra. She's wearing a mummy bra. But anyway, so a big battle ensues, right? Heroes versus these villains, and Scarab, the villain. And it's kind of cool because Scarab has a transformation, but it is a Scarab beetle armor. So it's kind of cool. I mean, I feel like the designs are not bad. Like the Scarab beetle armor has a very, ancient Egyptian feel to it, and, eagle, falcon and all their black, Nefertina is a black cat. So, very on the nose in regards to Egyptian stuff. There's a big battle that happens, and I think it's kind of cool, the villains, because, you have to have like these disposable, like the putties and Power Rangers, just disposable waves of villains you can just smash. And so all these villains are made of sand. So it's pretty cool. So you can like there's a scene where like they chop one in half and like the legs are running away because it's all sand. They're like animated sand. Or the fight sequences are actually pretty cool. There's a really cool moment where like Nefertina takes on 2 dudes and like does like a Hurricane Rana for both of them and like flips them by. It's a really cool scene. So anyway, so this whole thing happens. The Egyptian exhibit is destroyed by this huge battle. So the kid And the mummies run away. They go back to the kid's house because the mom's never there because she's working all the time. And so we get a lot of fish out of water stuff. They're like, what is a television? What is happening? And they, they don't know. They think the fridge is what is this white sarcophagus with food inside? And, so the kid is like, and like back to the kid not being likable because he's like, oh, that's a TV. You've never heard of a TV? That's my mom's cell phone. It's like, they're from Egyptian, dude. They're from Egypt. They obviously don't know what a cell phone is. But he's kind of a jerk, but whatever. But essentially they tell him that they're there to protect him because, and I think I got this right, he is the reincarnated spirit of the prince Rapses. And that's why he was so emotional when he saw the cat, because that was his cat. And so at first I was like, well, it's like the lineage. He's like the line of princes, or because they're all, now, you take it for whatever, but I'm like, are they Latino? Because the kid and the mom especially are very caramel colored. They're very, it's great. I mean, I love it. But I'm like, what, are they Egyptian? Because it's a definite choice they made to color them differently than everybody else. But so, the mummies tell this kid that he is the reincarnated prince and they're there to protect him. And he's freaking. He's like, I'm not a prince. I'm just me. I'm just this kid. And so it's kind of like that sort of, you got the wrong fella, guys. I'm not your hero kind of stuff. So we got some fish out of water moments while, they're adjusting, the mummies are adjusting to the world, and we're getting a sense of who they are. For instance, the blue guy, the leader, Jakal, he is like a Boy Scout, and he's always spouting wisdom like, yes, well, 2 hens in the pocket is better than an egg in the brush, or something, whatever, dumb stuff like that. But he's very Boy Scout. And then Wrath, he's the snake, and he's the intelligent one. He's definitely the smartest. He's also a wizard, but he's also kind of a jerk. And so like there's a scene, but he's like prideful, and so he doesn't like to admit he doesn't know stuff. So they're like, what is a cell phone? And he's like, a cell phone is you don't know what a cell phone is? Well, I can't explain it to you right now. It's too complicated, dum-dum. You know what I mean? But he obviously doesn't know what a cell phone is, but he's putting up the front that he does. So, we're, like I said, we're getting their personalities. We see the girl likes speed. Nefertina digs speed because they're watching the spirit box, as they call it. And it's like a cop show, and these cops are like chasing a villain down. And she's like, yeah, I'm getting into this. I want to be these cars, and what is this? And so it turns out that the mom comes home, they have to do some quick hiding. And she's like, yeah, they're just going to move the Egyptian, because of the destruction, they're moving those sarcophagi back to Egypt. And he's like, what? And so he tells the mummies, hey, they're moving the sarcophagus out of here. And we learn that the sarcophagi are their energy chargers, kind of like the cell phone or like Green Lantern's battery, the lantern itself. They have to recharge their powers in the sarcophagi by the power of Ra, is what they say. That's their, by the power of Ra, and then they go through the transformation, but it doesn't last forever, so they have to recharge in the sarcophagus. And the villain, Scarab, who is also, now this is kind of creepy. So this Scarab, the villain, is also this rich David Warner-esque villain who's like a millionaire, and he's the one that's been financing the move of these sarcophagi from Egypt to San Francisco. And so it turns out, this is creepy, that he's the villain now, he's Scarab, and and I had to wiki this because they don't tell you this, when the villain, we'll just call him David Warner, when David Warner goes to Egypt and he finds this initial mummy setup, right, this whole sarcophagi and everything, Scarab essentially kills him and takes over his body, right? So creepy. So we see this millionaire investor, David Warner, but he's actually just a husk of his old self, and inside is this villain. Creepy, the torturous sort of way to be. But so the heroes do an assault on the, they're taking the sarcophagi back to the airport. to get back to Egypt. So the heroes intervene and they try to get their sarcophagi back. Meanwhile, the villains go and there's a big battle, more battling happening, and it's not a bad show. I mean, of course, at the end of the day, you know, there's some cool action sequences. They win, and they take the sarcophagi and they go to a location. They're like, look, we're gonna find ourselves a hideout. You know, we can't live with you, kids, so we're gonna find ourselves a hideout while while we protect you. But they throw so much stuff at you in this pilot cartoon that it really feels kind of disjointed. Like this kid is the one, right? And it's just very, I don't know. The concept-wise, I think is cool. Mummies in San Francisco protecting a kid who is like a pharaoh. But this initial episode, at least, was too much. Disjointed, too much. You don't get any emotional anything. You know, you don't get to, I mean, everybody plays to their types. Like, the hero is the leader, upright and good standing. And the intelligent guy is kind of like a Han Solo. He's kind of smarmy, maybe a bit of a dick. Sorry, a little bit of a jerk. But still, you know, he's a good guy, well-intentioned, a bit arrogant. You know, the girl's a speed freak, and the dude is the muscle guy is a dum-dum, you know, who's always eating and watching TV. So, I mean, concept-wise, it's fun, but, and maybe through the rest of the season, there's 42 episodes, apparently, 42, 44 seasons in the first, 42 to 44 episodes in the first season, jeez. I only watched a couple, and it was kind of hard to get through. I just couldn't, I don't know. I don't know what it was about Mummies Alive. Concept-wise, I enjoyed. Execution just didn't. Now, I should probably give it at least 3 or 4 or 5, I mean, the 40-something episodes, I should give it at least more than one. And I watched a couple, but I just couldn't get into it, man. I didn't like the main kid, and I just felt like it all went too fast. It's all going too fast. I need to let it simmer. This pilot episode should have been a 2-episode pilot. To stretch some of this out, to kind of feel a little more about the people. I don't know. But at the end of the day, good guys win, bad guys lose, and the good guys take up residence in the Sphinx exhibit from the museum. And so they get like rocket cars, and they get like all of a sudden like they're teched out because they're selling toys. And so that's what we see, of course, that they released a large, well, not a large, but there's a lot of toys that they released for Mummies Alive. Of course, you see the drag car they drive, and like a flying vehicle, and some of the action figures. But unfortunately, the series just didn't take off. Now, when I looked at when I was doing my research for it, the wiki, there's a lot of positive reviews, like 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10 for Mummies Alive. And apparently, the writers of Mummies Alive actually contributed to season 3 of Gargoyles. And that's one of the biggest complaints about Mummies Alive, was that there was a lot of similarities to Gargoyles. You know, ancient figures coming back to life to protect someone, you know, kind of a deal. You know, Gargoyles was the same concept. So Mummies Alive, I don't know if I would revisit it. Like I said, it's just kind of a disappointment. Concept-wise, I dig it. And maybe if I dug into more episodes, it would be better. But Mummies Alive, I gotta say, I'm not feeling you this time. But if you have any requests or comments or cartoons you'd like me to see, definitely check them out. I'm trying to see more stuff that I've never seen before, as opposed to like the stuff that I love, you know, Silverhawks, He-Man, Thundercats, stuff like that. So not sure what next Saturday will be, but it'll definitely be something different and hopefully a little better. No, I'm not going to slam Mummies Alive, but I'll say hopefully a little better than Mummies Alive. But at any rate, thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a great rest of your Saturday. Remember, today is the DC Fandom. So www.dcfandom.com. I'll be watching in and out, looking at Ben Affleck, Michael Keaton in the new Flash movie. That's huge announcements already. So a lot of big stuff is coming out of this, and I'll try to keep you updated as much as I can. As always, thank you for watching. Robert Jerdee here, San Antonio, Spurs, go Spurs, go. They're not in the playoffs this year. Robert Jerdee here. Thank you so much for watching Saturday Morning Cartoons and All Things Nerdy Edition. As always, thank you for watching, and stay nerdy.